great. Okay, so to start us off, what we're looking at today is we are going back to year 8 before we come all the way up to year 9. Now you're probably thinking, I don't want to do all of year 8 chemistry again. And the great news for you is we don't have to. We only have to do literally what is on the board right now. So to start us off, everything is made up of billions of these tiny little particles called atoms. So the bit I like to highlight there is that tiny particles are atoms. But that's not our definition of atom. You'll notice on page 4 of your booklet right up the top, it has a definition box. And what I'm going to get you to write for your definition of an atom is this, in green. An atom is the smallest particle that can exist by itself and can take part in a chemical reaction. Now, for those who are interested, atoms are like really tiny. They're not all the same size. And it does depend on the atom that you get, but roughly about 20 million atoms all lined up in a straight row will only make 1 centimetre. So they are really, really, really tiny, right? When we were doing biology, what was the smallest thing that we used to reference a lot? Starts with C. Rhymes with L. Yeah, the cell, okay? When we're talking about cells, cells were the smallest living organism, okay? Smallest part of living organisms. Atoms make up these organisms. They make up cells. Now, there are only 92 naturally occurring atoms, but you'll notice on your periodic table, hang on a second, we have 118 elements. And that is because some of them are man-made. Some of them we've made. You might have heard of the Large Hadron Collider. This is a thing where we can smash atoms together and we can actually make these elements for such a small period of time, and then they decompose and then they break down into other elements again. So if we're looking around the universe, there's only 92 that we see on a day-to-day basis that we can look around. Some of them exist for such a short period of time that we don't really count them as naturally occurring. Yeah.
Everything in this room is made out of 92 atoms.
Yes. Well, not everything in this room. We probably don't even have all 92 here. I do, however, have a collection of about 20 additional elements around the room that we're going to have a play with in a minute. So, some important definitions. Again, an atom is the smallest particle that can exist by itself and partake in chemical reactions. It's also known as the building block of all matter. Okay. The second definitions, okay, the second and third definition, I should say, these are things which we're going to add to our terminology column again. So I'll highlight these ones in blue. Firstly, an element. What is an element? It is a substance made up of only one type of atom. Now, if I'm you, I am highlighting or underlining in my definition, because you can fill this in on booklet page 4, there is a spot there for element. You want to underline that part, one type of atom. So an atom is the building block of all matter. An element is a substance that is only made up of one type of atom. A compound, on the other hand, again, let me pick pink for this definition of compound. A compound is a substance made up of 2 or more types of atom. So what we're about to do in a second here, if I just leave this up on the board now, you'll notice that we have some boxes here, and we're going to draw some particle diagrams to show an element and to show a compound. So can anyone have a look at your periodic table? What are some examples of some elements that we can see? Gold. Another one? Calcium. Another one? Silver. Potassium. Copper. Zinc. What do we breathe in? And? Nitrogen, yeah. Okay. So what we're going to do, in the element box, we're going to draw how these tend to hang out. And the one I like to draw to start is oxygen. Now oxygen, it doesn't like to hang out by itself. What it does is it hangs out with a friend. It hangs out with another oxygen. And so oxygen looks like 2 circles. And what I like to do is I like to draw the symbol inside. So in this case, the symbol for oxygen is a capital O. Okay? So this is what we would call O2. Because I have 2 oxygens stuck together. It kind of looks like 2 donuts, I'll be honest with you. Question, yeah?
Can I ask you a question? Is sodium lithium like salt? Is this...
Yep, so a salt is where we take a metal and a non-metal.
No, but is salt, like if you eat a lot of
Not too much, but you do need some electrolyte. So for instance, if
A
you
bunch of chips that are like covered in salt, is that bad for me?
if you do that every single day and you eat multiple bags, well, no. However, if you're having everything in moderation, Izzy, everything in moderation. So I'll get to the next question in a second. The next one that I like to do is a metal. And this metal is everyone's favorite metal because it's really, really expensive. And I've got some around the classroom today. So what we're looking at is gold, and gold has the symbol of AU. Now gold, as a metal, is made up of lots of the same atom, and the same atom being the gold atom. And what that looks like is just a whole bunch of gold atoms right next to one another. I'm going to do 3 rows here. Now, a compound. We're almost there. A compound is made up of 2 or more types of atoms. So there's one that sits around the room right now lurking. Dihydrogen monoxide. Does anyone know? It's in a number of bottles around the room. Water. Does anyone know what the chemical formula? H2O. So, up the top we have H2O. Now, when we look at H2O, what is included in H2O? What are some of the things? Hydrogen, and how many hydrogens? 2 hydrogens and? And what that looks like to us, if I underline parts here, I'm going to do oxygen in blue, and I'm going to do hydrogen in red. What that looks like is going to be 1 oxygen, and I write the symbol inside, and 2 hydrogens. Now, this is a compound because it contains 2 or more types of atoms. Another one is something that we breathe out.
Carbon dioxide.
Very good, carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is CO2. And this means that it is made up of 1 carbon and 2 oxygens. So in this instance, we can draw it, and it looks quite similar to water in that carbon dioxide looks like 1 carbon, and this time there are 2 oxygens attached. So to recap very quickly, I will then jump to that question, is we've got 3 definitions so far. Number 1, we've had atoms. Atoms are the building blocks of all matter. We've also said that it is the smallest particle that can exist by itself and take part in a chemical reaction. We then said an element is only made up of 1 type of atom versus a compound which is made up of 2 or more. What I'm going to get you to do right now is I'm going to give you 1 minute, and all I want you to do is in these boxes on page 6, I want you to write, are they an element or a compound? So we've done this first one already. We've seen that water, H2O, is a compound. Gold, we've also done this one. Gold is a element. We can tell the difference based on looking at the diagram and looking at the chemical formula. If the chemical formula has 2 different types of atom, 2 different types of element, it's going to be a compound. All right, shout it out for me. Carbon dioxide, what is it? Compound. Ammonia, what is it? Compound, very good. Salt. Vinegar. Oxygen gas. And helium. Very good. All right, it's time to go and do our practical.